All right, we should be live. Thanks for joining tonight at 7 p.m. It's Cinco de Mayo, May 5th, 2022. I appreciate you being here. Tommy Stock is here, Craven Lystat, Jeff, Samuel Gates, KJV, Call for Honor Audits, to Tony, Justin, and all right, we should be live. Thanks for joining tonight at 7 p.m. Stock is here. Oops. It's Cinco de Mayo, May 5th, 2000 and oops, sorry about that. Give me a 5x5 if you guys can hear me. I'm not going to play any system audio tonight, I don't think. Well, yeah, I might play this right here. Hold on one second. Let's get some.
Mr. LaTourette, for your information, you have 13 and a half.
Can you guys hear system audio and can you hear me? If you can hear both, give me a 5x5. If you only can hear one by 5. I want to try to move through this fairly quickly because I want this to be a video that you share with everybody because this affects everybody everywhere at all times. And I mean everybody everywhere at all times. Thanks, Justin. Thanks, Seth. Thanks guys for being here. Super humbling when even one of you shows up. Make sure all my stuff's going on in the background here. 5x5. We talk a lot about tyranny and getting rid of tyranny and exposing tyranny and trying to give a layer of transparency, not only in America, but also in the world about what law enforcers are doing to us. They're basically using their power that they have, the power that they say the people gave them, and abuse us. They're not serving and protecting, they're harassing and collecting like we always say. But how do we get rid of that? How do we actually solve the problem? Do we solve the problem by changing laws? Do we solve the problem by, codifying different laws? I mean, laws like Terry v. Ohio, laws on the books that are there to take away our rights. Yeah, we can change the laws, but how is the existence, the creation of law funded? That's what we need to do. So it'd be like, I want to just kind of set up the landscape for this video right here. It'd be like us going out into a field and seeing a diseased tree and going, I'm going to fix this diseased tree by picking off all the leaves so that the next time the next round of leaves comes in, they won't be poisonous leaves. Or you might go, well, I'm going to pick off the leaves and I'm going to take off the fruit. And then when it grows back, the next harvest season comes, it's going to be non-poisonous fruit, non-poisonous leaves. Or somebody else might say, I'm going to go even further. I'm not just going to tear off the leaves and take off the fruit. I'm going to take off some of the branches. And somebody goes, well, it's not enough for the leaves and the fruit and the branches. We're going to tear off the boughs, because you want to save the tree, right? Or do you? Do you want to save the tree? But the wise man will go, you know what? It doesn't, the problem doesn't originate from the leaves, the law enforcers. It doesn't originate from the bad fruit, the politicians. It doesn't originate from the branches, the judges. It doesn't originate from the boughs. It originates from the root. Unless we lay the axe of freedom at the root of this poisonous tree, we're not going to get anywhere. The price of freedom is and will always be eternal vigilance. Indifference to this notion is the means by which the people have and will secure their own oppression. Those who desire to be ignorant and free desire what never was and what never shall be. If we're ignorant about what we're about to talk about tonight, and we stay steeped in our ignorance thinking that we know things, and I'm not slighting any First Amendment or Second Amendment auditor who goes out there, because that is a vital function to call attention to and add transparency to the public at large so that we can inform other people about our rights, so that we can stand on our rights, just like Craig did in CH and Ty audits the other day against that tyrannical judge who had a law enforcer, two law enforcers, force this man, Craig, against his will, that's CH and Ty audits, against his will, without his consent, into a courtroom so that the judge could declare him guilty of, the judge's infraction in the courtroom. Contempt of court. The judge wanted so bad to hold this kid in contempt of court, this man in contempt of court, that he drug him with two law enforcers into the court so he could hold him in contempt of court. Not only was it illegal according to the judge's own laws, that's Daniel Moulter from Indiana, not only was he in contempt of his own law, he was not only in violation of the Constitution, he was in violation not only of natural law, but of natural human dignity and respect. Why? Because he wouldn't want that done to him. That judge violated do to others what you would want done to you. He also violated don't do to others what you wouldn't want done to you. That judge who performed that tyrannical edict upon Craig and CH and Ty audits would not have wanted that same action to befall him or anybody in his life that he loves. But what's the problem? The problem is that judge was funded to do what he did. Those law enforcers are funded to do what they do, to spread tyranny on the landscape of humanity like a dark fire of tyranny, this black hole of tyranny that sucks freedoms away from every single person. It can only happen when these things are funded. Without this kind of funding, and I am talking about the federal funding based on the Federal Reserve, guys, stay tuned. You are going to hear a speech from the House floor in 1993 that you've probably never heard before. If you have, maybe you've forgotten about it. But it's the fundamental, it's the kernel, it's the genesis of what's wrong with our world today, our entire world. Not just America, not just Canada, not just to the people of the South in Mexico, not just in New Zealand or Australia or China or Japan. It's everywhere, at all times and in every place. It's a malignant cancer that literally needs to be surgically extracted from the body of the public life. So we set brush fires of freedom in the minds of men. And one of those fires that I want to set is tonight. The axe needs to be at the root of the tree, and the axe needs to go against the funding of the politicians, the political class, the law enforcement class, the oligarch class, the black robe tyrant class. You need to take away all of their funding, and we can do it because there's way more of us than there are of them. And all we have to do is agree on just a couple of principles, a couple of moral principles. And I think we all can. Without this funding, war can't be waged. Without this funding, criminals in Congress can't be paid. Judges can't be bribed. Political forces can't be aligned against you, and police forces can't be funded. So what are we talking about here? Before I go over to Title 28, Section 300215A, and defining what the United States actually is according to their own federal code, let me read what some consider is a spurious quote from Benjamin Franklin, but I'll leave it to you to think, is it a spurious quote or not? Are there truths in it that need to be extracted so we can live a more moral and aware and non-ignorant life? He said, according to this document right here, Benjamin Franklin said, debt-free money must return to America and used properly so as to not cause inflation or deprive us of much needed benefit that all can use, that being infrastructure. Of course, the parasitic investing rich would rather loan money that they have not properly earned, often by being part of the banking cartel that counterfeits all our money in the first place. Yeah, Benjamin Franklin was talking about this 250 years ago. And we're still dealing with it today. And we're still dealing with the fallout of it today. And that fallout is the tyranny that we're all having to record. When you go out on the street, the reason you're recording this right here is because it's funded by Zio International banking cartels. America is and has been since Hamilton's time, but a monetary colony for the bankers of Europe, whose branch office in America is the Federal Reserve of New York City. That Hamilton started himself as their agent and our Secretary of Treasury. It must end in our generation and show the world that debt-based money is the most abusive form of human slavery outside of chattel slavery or war, which also parasitically abuses the general public maximally. Something else that Benjamin Franklin said that we need to be keenly aware of. He said the refusal of King George to allow the colonies to operate an honest money system, that's not what we have today. When Jerome Powell stood behind the lectern, I was corrected the other day, it's not a podium, it's a lectern. The podium is the thing on which you stand. The lectern is the thing you stand behind. But when he stood at that lectern and said, hey, we're going to raise the interest rates 0.5%, and yesterday, euphoria on Wall Street went up 1,000. Well, today there was a little bit of regret, maybe a little economic drunkenness that had to wear off, and a little sobriety kicked in. Well, all that 1,000 points that it went up yesterday, it went down 1,000 today. Because people are starting to realize, hey, this is a rigged game. This is a big club, and we ain't in it. So Benjamin Franklin says 250 something years ago, the refusal of King George to allow the colonies to operate an honest money system, which freed the ordinary man, that's you and me, from the clutches of the money manipulators, was probably the prime cause of the revolution. Are you going to get that in the history books and the 15,000 hour public fool indoctrination program from the U.S. government? No, you're not going to get that. You will never hear that quote. You will never hear that idea. That concept will never knock on the door of your ear gates or in your mind or in your heart, not from the public school system, because they want cookie cutter people who don't question authority. There's no such thing as legitimate authority unless you're a parent over a child. If you have a disagreement with that, I would like to hear that in the comment section below. Don't just give me a like and, oh, I'm unsubbing and I completely disagree with you. There is authorized authority. I think Joe Biden is a perfect prime candidate to be an authority over me. Really? You believe he has a higher claim over your life and property than you, to the point where he thinks you can tax you 30, 40, 50, 90% for the war effort? In this made-for-TV fiasco we got going on to the northwest of us? So that's Benjamin Franklin's take. And then just real quick to just go ahead and set the framework for the U.S. federal code, because they say this in their own words. This isn't me. The United States isn't, and I know you've been under the false assumption that it is not a country. It's a federal corporation. This is 28 U.S.C. Code 3002, go down to 15A. And I know we've dealt with this before, but this is germane to this conversation. The United States means a federal corporation. It is a corporate entity that is controlling and calling all the shots here. They don't care about you. They don't give a damn about your family. As a matter of fact, they hate you and they basically want to eliminate you. The only reason you're here as a, in their words, useless eater from all these eugenicists is because they want to extract and they want to fleece the tax cattle for everything they got before they start taking the, fulfilling the first commandment of the Georgia Guidestones. If you don't know what that is, I'll have you look that up on your own time. But there's this guy named James Traficant. Was he a politician? Yes, he was a politician. I don't trust him. He's a member of the Democratic Party, and it doesn't matter, because if he was part of the Republican or Democrats, it doesn't matter. They're two wings of the same bird of prey. But he said some truths on the House floor back in 1993 that we need to all listen to and we need to refresh our memories about. And I'll go, it's kind of an interesting backstory with this guy. But first, I want to focus our attention on the words that he actually says. Look, I don't care if it's Hillary Clinton. I don't care if it's Bill Clinton. I don't care if it's Jeffrey Epstein. I don't care if it's the guy with the funny mustache or Joseph Stalin or Mao Zedong. If they utter truth, it's just the truth. It's not the truth because they said it. It's the truth because it's the truth. A lie is a lie, even if everybody believes it. If the whole world believes the lie, but you don't, it's still a lie. And the truth is still a truth, even if nobody believes it. That's just a fact. So this is James Traficant's U.S. bankruptcy speech on the U.S. congressional floor on March 17th, 1993. And I would venture to guess that not many people have heard this speech. And if they haven't, they should. And if you think it's worthy of sharing, like this video and share it with everybody you know. There's 393 people in the room right now, 144 likes. If you like this content, if you think it's valuable, if it's something that you think could serve as a seed that we can plant in humanity so we can set those brush fires of freedom, please do so. Let me just start reading this. Mr. Speaker, we are here now in chapter 11. Remember, this is 1993, guys. 1993. This is almost 30 years ago. Members of Congress are official trustees presiding over the greatest reorganization of any bankrupt entity in world history, the U.S. government. We are setting forth, hopefully, a blueprint for our future. There are some who say it is a coroner's report that will lead to our demise. It is an established fact that the United States federal government has been dissolved by the Emergency Banking Act, March 9th, 1933. And we've gone over that in video after video on my main channel, High Impact Flicks. If you want to, well, actually, you can't get that because those have been erased from the memory hole over there in ScrewTube. And then he gives the public law declared by President Roosevelt being bankrupt and insolvent, HJR 192, 73rd Congress, M session, June 5th, 1933. Joint resolution to suspend the gold standard and abrogate the gold clause dissolved the sovereign authority of the United States and the official capacities of all United States government offices, officers, and departments, and is further evidence that the United States federal government exists today in name only. Because somebody else is running the show. Another set of puppet masters has command of the strings. And guess who's dangling on the end of those strings? Your favorite politicians. The ones that you voted into office to change things for the better in your life. Except when they get into office, I don't care if they're Republican or Democrat, they do the exact opposite of what they said that they're going to do. They're soundly in the back pockets of their banking masters. You know this and I know this. And it's up to us to do something about it. The receivers of the United States bankruptcy are the international bankers. They're the recipients. They're the beneficiaries via the United Nations and World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. All United States offices, officials, and departments are now operating within a de facto status in name only under emergency war powers. With the constitutional republic form of government now dissolved, the receivers of the bankruptcy have adopted a new form of government for the United States. Remember, Title 28, Section 3002, 15A, I'll probably refer to it often. The United States means federal corporation. It is a corporate entity that controls the issuance of our currency. Remember what Amschel Rothschild said, give me control over a nation's money and I care not who makes its laws. Oh, or the politician who's in office right now. Everybody's talking about election fraud. It doesn't matter what puppet is on the hand. The hand stays the same while the puppets change. Two wings of the same bird of prey. And what are those vultures doing? They're always circling around looking for more prey, and the prey is you and I. Like what is a democracy? Benjamin Franklin said it's two wolves and a lamb deciding on what to have for dinner. You are the dinner. I am the dinner. Your children are the dinner. They're going to entwine us in transgenerational banker debt and slavery until the day we die, so they can continue extracting your time and your laboring energies. You know, all that time you spend away from your family so that you can provide for your family, put a roof over their head, clothes on their back, and food in their stomachs? Well, the bankers have control of your time and laboring energies. They exact the value of your time and laboring energies. How does that make you feel? You know, there's a word for that. When somebody can control your time and laboring energies and you're powerless to resist it, you know what that's called? It's called slavery. With the constitutional republic form of government now dissolved, the receivers of the bankruptcy have adopted a new form of government for the United States. This new form of government is known as a democracy, being an established socialist communist order under a new governor for America. This act was instituted and established by transferring and or placing the office of the Secretary of Treasury to that of the governor of the International Monetary Fund. Public Law 94-564, page 8, section HR 13955 reads in part, quote, the U.S. Secretary of Treasury receives no compensation for representing the United States. Remember, which is a federal corporation. Gold and silver were such a powerful money during the founding of the United States of America that the founding fathers declared that only gold or silver coins can be money in America. Since gold and silver coinage were heavy and inconvenient for a lot of transactions, and it's true, they were, and it's a good idea to have something that represents it, but that thing that represents real money isn't money itself, but that's how Americans started using it. And the bankers saw this and they're like, wow, if they're going to start using the receipts for money as money itself, why don't we just print some more money, charge the interest back, and then we'll make the interest on basically nothing, printing money out of thin air. Since gold and silver coinage were heavy and inconvenient for a lot of transactions, they were stored in banks, and a claim check was issued as a money substitute. People traded their coupons as money or currency. Currency is not money, and that's what a lot of people do not realize. They think, hey, pull out a $5 bill. What is that? Oh, it's $5. It's the money that I have in my pocket. No, it's supposed to represent money. It no longer does, so that currency isn't even money. In fact, it doesn't even represent money. There's nothing there. As a matter of fact, not only is it not money, not only is it not a thing of value, not only is it not a credit to your account, that FRN, that Federal Reserve note, is a debt. It's a note of debt. If you own it, you own the debt on it. What do you have in your pocket? It's a whole bunch of debt. It's a representation of a whole bunch of debt, which is symbolic of the economic slavery that we all find ourselves in. And that is the stuff that's funding our police departments. That is the stuff that's funding politicians. Political parasites are making laws that serve two purposes. They take away your freedoms and extract more money from you, so you got to work harder to get less and less. This is crazy. If we keep on doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result, what is that but insanity? Redeemable currency must promise to pay a dollar equivalent in gold or silver money. Federal Reserve notes, FRNs, make no such promises and are not money. A Federal Reserve note, remember, this was said on the floor of the congressional chamber. A Federal Reserve note is a debt obligation of the federal United States government, not money. The federal United States government and the U.S. Congress were not and have never been authorized by the Constitution for the United States of America to issue currency of any kind, but only lawful, honest gold and silver coin. See, if you have honest money, then you can't have dishonest people doing dishonest things by printing money into existence out of thin air. It's called, if you and I did it, you know what that's called? It's called counterfeiting. But they can counterfeit a whole lot of things that they say is value, but it's only value and perception. It's a shell game. It is essential that we comprehend the distinction between real money and paper money substitute. One cannot get rich by accumulating money substitutes unless when you accumulate it, you put it into hard assets, real estate, gold, silver, in some cases, cryptocurrency, houses, lands, food, water systems. Put it in some kind of infrastructure, something that's actually going to be valuable when everything collapses. And by the way, all currencies everywhere in not only U.S. history, but human history go back to their original value of zero. Because what we have here, when you pull a $5 bill out of your pocket and they believe it's $5, that's all perception. It's not real value. Most Americans have not been paid any money for a very long time, perhaps not in their entire life. I know we haven't. Now, do you comprehend why you feel broke? Now do you understand why you are bankrupt along with the rest of the country? Now do you understand why you're under tyrannical forces? Because they have control over the printing presses, and they don't even need the printing presses anymore with today's technology-based environment. All they got to do is put zeros and ones in people's accounts. Oh, Jeffrey Epstein, you need a couple $1 billion here. Here, you need an upgrade on Lolita Express so that you can fly around Bill Clinton and Hillary and the other cadre of bandits. Donald Trump rode on Lolita Express. No, we like Donald Trump. He's the father of the VAXXs, according to him. It's a beautiful product. I highly suggest it. I know there's a lot of people against me for it. But how can you give $55 billion in 1 year to a company, a corporation that's known to be a habitual offender, engaged in corrupt marketing practices, bribing physicians, and suppressing adverse trial results if it wasn't for funny money? You can't. That's another thing. Not only can you not fund wars to the criminals of Congress, you can't fund funny money for the big pharma industrial complex or the military industrial complex. You can't fund the war machine. The prison industrial complex will fall flat without funny money. It all goes back to this. This is the axe that we need to lay at the root of that tree right there. That's why this is the most important video pretty much you can see at this juncture. Unless it's some kind of medical thing where, you're on the brink of death and you need to look at this vital information. But for the general population, we've got to understand this. This needs to go down into our hearts. We have to understand fully what's going on. We are being screwed. Tyranny is coming against us because tyranny can be funded by the Zio International Banking Cartel and the International Monetary Fund and the United Nations and the Trilateral Commission and the Bilderbergs. Federal Reserve notes are unsigned checks written on a closed account. FRNs are an inflatable paper system. That's why we have inflation, Jerome Powell. Oh, it's the Federal Reserve's job to make sure that we control inflation for the American people because, we're champions of economic progress. Don't worry, we'll make sure it's a soft landing. It's an inflatable paper system designed to create debt through inflation, which is the devaluation of currency. There's another word for inflation. It's called the hidden tax. When eggs used to be, let's say 99 cents or 69 cents a dozen, and now they're $3.59 a dozen, you just got stolen from. And the criminals, the thieves, are still at large, and they're in power, and they'll continue to do it. Man, I used to pay 69 cents not for this. Now it's $3.39. Well, why do I have to work 5 times harder to get that dozen eggs? Axe at the root of the trees. Inflatable monetary system. Whenever there's an increase in the supply of money substitute in the economy without a corresponding increase in gold and silver backing, inflation occurs. That's basic economics 101. Inflation is an invisible form of taxation that irresponsible governments inflict on their citizens, and they do inflict it, and they love it. Oh man, why don't you see name one politician outside of Ron Paul, outside of trafficant right here? Name one politician who's like, you know what? Before we do anything, before we say anything, before we promise anything, we've got to do the public a favor and get rid of the Zio International Banking Cartel and the biggest domestic terror cell on American soil, probably on the world, the I.R.S. And you know why I have to say that? Because there are algorithms that will just absolutely come after you if you say that word. They have access to an unlimited supply of FRNs, paying only for the printed cost of what they need. They don't even have to do that anymore. This is back in 1993, before the computer age really got, started heating up. FRNs are nothing more than promissory notes for U.S. Treasury security T-bills, a promise to pay the debt to the Federal Reserve Bank. So if you're indebted to the Federal Reserve Bank, then you and I are debt slaves to the Federal Reserve Bank and those who operate the Federal Reserve Bank. There's a fundamental difference between paying and discharging debt. To pay a debt, you must pay with value or substance, i.e. gold, silver, barter, or commodity. With FRNs, you can only discharge the debt. You cannot pay a debt with a debt currency system. You cannot service a debt with a currency that has no backing in value or substance. No contract in common law is valid unless it involves an exchange of good and valuable consideration, which fiat currency is not. This is made to service all debts, public and private, says the FRN. It's just a Federal Reserve note. It is a note of debt, and you are a debt slave if you hold them, especially if you hold a bunch of them, because that's going to be devalued real quick. And yes, gold and silver is being devalued and artificially suppressed and manipulated right now, but that's a musical chairs game. The music's going to stop one day, and it's like the spring has been sprung. The spring of the value of gold and silver compared to the dollar or palladium or whatever. Once the music stops and that spring is sprung, man, wait till gold and silver go to the moon and beyond. Unpayable debt transfers power and control to the sovereign power structure that has no interest in money, law, equity, or justice because they have so much wealth already. And it gets to the point where they don't even want any more money. They just want to acquire more power. And we know, if we know something about power, once it goes into a human being, it corrupts. It has a corrupt, caustic influence. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And if controlling the monetary systems of the governments around the world isn't absolute power, there is no such thing as absolute power in this world. The Federal Reserve System is based on the canon law and the principles of sovereignty protected in the United States Constitution and the Bill of Rights. In fact, the international bankers used a canon law trust as their model so that they could get around what the Constitution says. Adding stock and naming it a joint stock trust, the U.S. Congress had passed a law making it illegal for any legal person to duplicate a joint stock trust in 1873. The Federal Reserve was legislated post facto to 1870, although post facto laws are strictly forbidden by the Constitution, which brings us back to what Lysander Spooner said about the Constitution. Whether the Constitution be one thing or other, this much is certain. It's either authorized such a tyrannical, paid off, bought and paid for government as we have, or it's been powerless to stop it. In either case, it's unfit to exist. Yeah, you thought you had a Second Amendment. How many hundreds, maybe thousands of federal and state gun laws are there, including red flag laws, bump stock bans, universal background checks? Anytime you have something like that, you actually have, those are infringements. Every law that you stack on the original law of the land, the supreme law of the land, the Second Amendment, is an infringement, is an infringement, is an infringement. And it says, shall not be infringed. Four of the most simple words in the English language that any 4 or 5 year old kindergartner can understand. Do you know what, do you want to, let me just explain to you what infringe means: to impinge, to hinder, to get in the way of. Do you want anything? Do the founding fathers in the Second Amendment want anything getting in the, Johnny, I know you're 4 or 5 years old, but based on what the founding fathers said, do you think that they wanted anything, even a paper's width of anything, getting in the way of an individual and their right to keep and bear arms? No, doesn't look like it to me. Well, how do we know? How can you substantiate that, Johnny? Shall not be infringed. Bingo! But for some reason, the Eric Swalwells and the Camel Toe Harrises and the Nazi Pelosi's and the Harry Reids of this world think it's perfectly normal and natural in accordance with the human rights and the Second Amendment to put infringements in the way of you getting a personal protection device. I especially feel sorry for single mothers in inner city areas that need that personal protection device, but they're going to have to wait 3 days, 7 days, 10 days in some areas, wait for the background check for the government, the United States government to go, well, okay, I guess we'll clear you this time. No, I don't think we're going to. No, you can't get it. Forget it. And then if they do let you have it, allow you or give you permission, you're going to have to buy a license. Who can afford that? Guns are already expensive. Ammo's already expensive. It's an unjust system that is funded by funding money, which is why we're doing this video right now. The Federal Reserve System is a sovereign power structure. Keep that in mind. Remember what Alan Greenspan said? The 2020 guy said, what should the relationship be between a Federal Reserve chairman and the President of the United States? I wish I had that pulled up here so you could hear it in his own words. As a matter of fact, my mods in the room right now, if you can pull up Alan Greenspan saying to that, the 2020 guy or the ABC guy, whoever it was, what the relationship should be between a Federal Reserve chairman and the President of the United States, I'll go ahead and paraphrase it right now. But if you have the link, give it to me and I'll play that because I think it's germane to this conversation, because these people are so pompous. They're so power hungry. They're so much in control, and they're so cut from the same cloth of Amschel Rothschild, give me control over nation's money. I don't give a damn who makes the laws. Basically, Alan Greenspan said that exact same thing. He goes, well, as long as the Congress, the executive, legislative, and judicial branch don't get in the way, what the relationships are between a Federal Reserve chairman and a president of the United States, it doesn't even matter. As long as they do what we're saying, and as long as we're in control, we're in the driver's seat, and they're in the passenger seat or in the back seat somewhere, or way, way in the back of the cab, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter what the relationships are. We're in control. Pompous, evil. Federal Reserve System is a sovereign power structure separate and distinct from the Federal United States government, which is a corporation. The Federal Reserve is a maritime lender and or maritime insurance underwriter to the Federal United States, operating exclusively under Admiralty maritime law. The lender, this guy was clued in, man. This guy was clued in. Catch you later. Just drop the link. Let's see if I can get that. No, it's a video. I wanted to show the video. Yeah, thanks, catch you later. But it's actually a video. It's an old video from the early 2000s, late 1990s, where Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan has asked the question what the relationship between a President of the United States and Federal Reserve Chairman is. Yeah, if you guys can get that, though. Oh, catch you later's got it. No, it's text. I need the video. Federal Reserve is a maritime lender and or maritime insurance underwriter. The Federal United States, operating exclusively under Admiralty maritime law. The lender or underwriter bears the risks, and the maritime law compelling specific performance and paying interest or premiums are the same. But who bears the risk? Is it going to be the Federal Reserve? Is it going to be the Zio International Banking Cartel? Is it going to be the International Monetary Fund? Is it going to be the United Nations? Assets of the debtor can also be hypothecated. It's a pledge. To hypothecate is to pledge property. To pledge something as to pledge something as a security without taking possession of it as security by the lender or underwriter. And get this, the Federal Reserve Act stipulated that the interest on the debt was to be paid in gold. So they give you paper funding money that's absolutely worthless, and you got to pay it back with interest in silver or gold, because the bankers know what real money is, but Americans don't. That's why I call them Boobus Americanas, because they're parked in front of their frickin' TVs watching CIA infiltrated Operation Mockingbird, Lamestream, MK Ultra, Communist News Network, Brian Stelter, Jakey the Snake Tapper media, and they don't understand what's going on. And they're ignorant and they believe they're free. But if you don't know you're ignorant and you think you're free, well, you're neither. Well, actually, you are ignorant, but you're not free. Federal Reserve Act stipulated that the interest on the debt was to be paid in gold. These guys. Give me the gold. There was no stipulation in the Federal Reserve Act for ever paying the principal. Prior to 1913, most Americans owned clear allodial title to property, free and clear of any liens or mortgages until the Federal Reserve Act. Even if you paid off your house, even if you paid off your property, you don't own it. Why? Because you got to continue to pay the Federal Reserve property tax. You got to pay the Queen the property tax. You stop paying the property tax, guess what? The sheriffs, the law enforcement class come and take your property away because you didn't give the Federal Reserve your money. That's how it works, guys. You don't own your property. You don't own anything. You don't even own money, because the money that you thought you had is really debt. They're notes of debt. hypothecated or pledged all property pledged within the federal United States to the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve in which the trustee stockholders held legal title. The U.S. citizen's tenant franchisee was registered as a beneficiary of the trust via his or her birth certificate. In 1930, that's a huge deal. In 1933, the federal United States hypothecated or pledged all the present and future properties, assets, and labor of their subjects, the 14th Amendment U.S. citizen, to the Federal Reserve System. So we are debt slaves. So you talk about, people are like, man, good thing slavery's abolished. It was never abolished. It just took a different form, a more crafty, deceptive, deceitful, and evil form, to the point where our future unborn posterity is going to pay off $30 trillion, which is really more like $170 trillion in debt. In return, the Federal Reserve System agreed to extend the Federal United States Corporation, he even called it a corporation, all the credit and money substitute it needed. Like any other debtor, the federal United States government had to assign collateral and security to their creditors as a condition of the loan. Really? Key bono. Who benefits? Who benefits? Thanks, guys, for being in here. 726 people in here, 391 likes. If you like this content, if you think it's useful and informative, hit the like button. 391. Let's see if we can get up to 500 in the next 5 minutes. So hit that like button. It really helps overcome the censorship police algorithms. I'm going to read that again. They assigned the private property of their economic slaves. I'm going to read this whole thing over. Like any other debtor, the federal United States government had to assign collateral and security to their creditors as a condition of the loan. Since the federal United States didn't have any assets, they assigned the private property of their economic slaves, the U.S. citizens, as collateral against the unpayable federal debt. They also pledged the unincorporated federal territories, national parks, forests, birth certificates, and nonprofit organizations as collateral against the federal debt. All has already been transferred as payment to the international bankers. Unwittingly, ignorantly, America has returned to its pre-American Revolution feudal riots whereby all land is held by a sovereign and the common people had no rights to hold a allodial title to property. And I'm just going to refresh your memory on what Benjamin Franklin said about the Revolutionary War and the cause thereof. The refusal of King George to allow the colonies to operate an honest money system, which freed the ordinary man from the clutches of the money manipulators, was probably the prime cause of the revolution. I wonder if he had that in mind when he wrote this down before he spoke it on the House floor. Feudal rights whereby all land is held by a sovereign. It says, once again, we the people are the tenants and sharecroppers renting our own property from a sovereign in the guise of the Federal Reserve Bank. We the people have exchanged one master for another. And that's exactly what happens during every voting season. Oh, I know I didn't like the guy, but I chose the lesser of two evils. So what does government actually do to you? Based on that admission, the government actually dehumanizes and demoralizes you. It removes your morals to the point where you feel like your only choice is to choose evil because the lesser of two evils is still evil. But he was a Republican. He was looking out for my better interests. He said, read my lips, no new taxes. And then what happened? The taxes raised exponentially. I'm for the Second Amendment. What's a bump stock ban, huh? I don't know, Mike. What we can do is take the guns first. I'd like to take the guns first, due process second. Really? What's that called? It's called a violation of the Second Amendment. You frickin' traitor. I don't care if you're a red traitor or a blue traitor, playing for Team Red or Team Blue, Team Demoplican or Team Republicrat. We the people have exchanged one master for another. This has been going on for over 80 years without remember, this is back in 1993, without the informed knowledge of the American people, without a voice protesting loud enough. Now it's easy to grasp why America is fundamentally bankrupt. Why don't more people own their property outright? Back in 1993, why are 90% of Americans mortgaged to the hilt and have little or no assets after all debts and liabilities have been paid? Why does it feel like you're working harder and harder and getting less and less? Aren't you feeling the same thing? You go to the store and it seems like prices rise every time you go. And then your shopping cart, the groceries are less and less, but you're having to pay out more and more and work harder. And then people are taking mortgages out of their house, getting a second and third job. The spouse has to work. You got to downsize. Oh, it'll go so far that you'll have nothing but Klaus Schwab says you'll be happy. That's Klaus. Great Reset, Fourth Industrial Revolution. You'll know nothing and be happy. Marrying and merging biology and technology. Schwab from the World Economic Forum. We are reaping what has been sowed. And the result of our harvest is a painful bankruptcy and foreclosure on the American property, precious liberties, and the way of life. Few of our elected representatives, none in Washington, D.C., have dared to tell the truth. The federal United States is bankrupt. Our children will inherit this unpayable debt and the tyranny to enforce paying it. Our children will inherit this unpayable debt and the tyranny to enforce paying it. Guess what? The only reason tyranny continues to exist is because we allow them to steal more of our money. Think about that. We are the funders of our own demise. More theft is the answer to every problem when professional thieves are in charge. Just remember that. America has become completely bankrupt in world leadership, financial credit, and its reputation for courage, vision, and human rights. This is an undeclared economic war, bankruptcy, and economic slavery of the most corrupt order. Wake up, America. Take back your country. And then this guy, ironically and strangely enough, got indicted and sent to prison. He represented the 17th. This is James Traficant gave this congressional message on the House floor on March 17th, 1993. In 2001, they arrested him and threw him into jail because they said he took bribes, filing false tax returns, racketeering, and forcing his congressional staff to perform chores on his farm in Ohio and houseboat in Washington, D.C. He was sentenced to prison and released on September 2nd, 2009 after serving a 7-year sentence. So they threw this guy in jail. Now, I don't know if he was guilty or not. It sure looks suspicious to me that just a couple years after he gave this, and the Zio banksters do not like you talking about their criminal activities. They would rather go unseen and invisible while they keep on, playing their shell game charade with all the fiat currency Ponzi scheme. I just want to recap. You can't have a war. A war can't be waged without unsound money. Criminals in Congress can't be paid without unsound money. Judges can't be bribed, and police forces can't be funded without unsound money. The reason we got to go out with our cameras and video the police and try to bring transparency and morality and, some semblance of goodness to this world is because those cops are allowed to continue to steal from us, to pilfer from us. And in civil asset forfeiture, if you take a look at some civil asset forfeiture laws under their little equity equation there in their own laws, if they bring in, $100,000 or whatever, 80% goes to the state and 20% goes to the feds. So they're basically not only they dipping into the tax money where they're funding their cruisers and their Bearcats and their highfalutin weapons and the helicopters and training dogs, buying battering rams so they can tear down your front door because you had plant matter or they heard that you had plant matter, and shooting your dog and buying rounds and rounds of ammunition. The reason they can fund all that is because of funny money. If you had sound money like gold or silver, they would be constrained. The money manipulators' hands would be shackled by the chains of the Constitution, but they don't pay attention to that. Give me control over a nation's money. I don't care who makes its laws. I'll create a class system. If I can control the money, I'll create a class system. I'll have the political class. I'll have the oligarchs who are controlled by the Zio International bankers, and the oligarchs will control the political class, and then the political class will control the law enforcement class, and the law enforcement class will keep all the peasants, that's you and me, in line. And they'll have qualified immunity to boot. So that if they do something dastardly or irresponsible or expensive and it costs the taxpayers money, well, they can escape from any and all liabilities, just like the big pharma industrial complex. Oh, you got injured from one of our products? Oh, we escape any and all liability because, look, the President of the United States, Ronald Reagan, put that into effect. So what's our problem? Why is this the most important video that you'll ever see? Because this affects everybody at all times in all places. This is why tyranny can run rampant, because it can be funded by funny money. And they extract our time and laboring energies to buy the bat that they use to beat us across the head with. They use our tax money that they fleece from us, the tax cattle, to buy the torture cuffs, to throw you into a rape cage, to give you the green baloney, to fund the military industrial complex and the prison industrial complex and the war on drugs, which is really the war on people, and all these euphemisms. That's why I say politics is the clever and deceptive art of using euphemism, lies, emotionalism, and fear-mongering in order to dupe average people into accepting and even demanding the chains of our own enslavement. 747 people in the room, 533 likes. I really appreciate it, guys. I'm not going to spend much more time. We're at 45 minutes right here. I want this to be a shareable video. If you think this video is worth somebody's time for seeing, give this video a like right now, or you won't do it, and share this video with everybody you know. That's the way you support this channel. It's free. Like it and share it. Most people don't know this. And what I'll do is when I get done rendering, and I'm not going to play this. This is actually Ron Paul's testimony about how they railroaded trafficking and they stacked up the charges against him and then only gave him 30 to 45 minutes to answer for his charges. I don't know if the guy's guilty or not, but I do know one thing. If you read The Creature from Jekyll Island and then look at all the source material that makes up the writing of the book Creature from Jekyll Island from G. Edward Griffin, it's exactly what we're seeing right here. And I think I don't remember what year Creature from Jekyll Island was written. I don't know. Anybody know when it was written? I think it was post 1993. If it was pre 1993, then he probably read the book Creature from Jekyll Island. That's where he got all this. If he didn't read the book Creature from Jekyll Island, this is impressive because this is knowledge that most Americans don't even know about. So thank you guys. I appreciate you joining. Thank you for being here. Almost 600 likes, 731 concurrent viewers. If we can get up to 600 right before we head out the door, I really appreciate it. But please share this video. I appreciate you. We're all in this together. None of us is greater than all of us. We can defeat tyranny, but the way we do it is by stop funding tyranny. And that all goes back to, the income tax. That all goes back to, thanks for the 600 likes. And that all goes back to, dealing with the I.R.S, which is one of the, arguably one of the, if not the biggest domestic terror cells, the biggest monkey on the back of Americans, and really kind of by extension, the world. Because the reach of that organization is broad. It's a broad reach. Thanks, Axiom Revolt. Renee Bernays says, people are distracted more than ever because of television. Everyone's programmed by their TV. Get rid of it. TV can be used as a useful tool, but it can also be used as a big hypnotic device where you go out into your communities and you wonder, how is everybody thinking the same thing, saying the same thing, and doing the same things? Where did everybody get the idea that they had to wear a ritualistic shame muzzle? Oh, TV. Little Brian Stelter. Jakey the Snake Tapper. Saint Anthony Fraudstein. Can you get a little schmutz on that? Yeah, of course you can get a little schmutz. All right, guys, thank you very much. I'm going to keep this video under 50 minutes. We succeeded. I'll see you guys in the next heavily censored